Hello and welcome to another App Marketing Conversations. As always, I'm joined by Ryan Morel of GameHouse and Ian Sefferman of MobileDevHQ by Tune. I'm Robi Ganguly of Apptentive. So we're going to talk a little bit about some stuff that's happening in the developer ecosystem. As of today, Yahoo is officially in the mobile developer ecosystem. They had their first developer event, announced some mobile tools, really headlined by Flurry, but they've also got some stuff around monetization, advertising, and other apps. But now that means that we have a whole bunch of players in the space building tools at scale for mobile developers. And these are not just players like Tune and Apptentive, but they're players like Facebook and Google and Yahoo, Twitter, and Amazon, Microsoft, right? So it seems like everybody and their mother is chasing the mobile developer. Is that the most important developer in the world right now?
I think so, yeah. I mean, clearly, right? So if you're to look at the short history of developers being really extremely important, let's call it from the mid-90s till today, has there ever been a time when maybe 10 of the top 25 tech companies have had major initiatives to support the developer community? I mean, not that I'm aware of, right? Like, it was always Microsoft.
Yeah.
That was kind of it.
And maybe Apple.
Yeah.
Maybe they had dubbed up DC, but like quite frankly, I don't think they ever really cared. Back
It was
in the
more,
day.
yeah, it was less about developers and more about kind of the design community.
Yeah.
Right.
Now everyone cares.
Yeah. And why do you think that they care so much? What's going on here?
I think it's fascinating, right? It's the world is quickly being, like Mark Andreessen will tell you, right? Like the world is quickly being eaten by software, and in particular, software is being eaten by mobile. And these folks know that they have to be the central player in order for them to continue to build their mountains and their empires. I think it's I would honestly, I'd give credit to Microsoft, but I would also give a lot of credit to Amazon in this regard, right? I think AWS paved the way on the web side of the world for people to understand that money can be made and mindshare can be taken by simply providing these tools. And as we move to mobile, everybody needs to be there, right? But all of these guys are also providing a lot of monetization services, and Facebook's got that with their Atlas program. Yahoo announced that today, and so simply getting SDKs onto an app allows them to sort of land and expand further into monetization, where they can make money themselves too.
Yeah. So do you think any of these platforms in particular are way out in front? Like Yahoo today talks about the fact that Flurry is already in 630,000 apps. That's a tremendous footprint, huge, right? And so they're out there saying, well, we're here, we've got a huge footprint, we see a ton of data, and we can help you make more money, and we can help you make a better app because you have analytics. Are they really like one of the front runners, or do you think there are others out there?
It's hard for me to take this particular announcement seriously.
Yeah.
So I mean, I think the front runners are Apple and Google, right? And Google has done a fantastic job with all of their developer tools. They provide kind of the full stack of services that a developer needs. I think Apple is, I think they're starting to take the needs of the developer more seriously. And once they really take it more seriously, they'll be right next to Google for being way out in front of anybody, right? Because they own the hardware.
Yeah.
And at least from Google's perspective, they own the software, right? So like I was trying to come up with a good analogy, and the only thing I could come up with that's kind of lame is that like the iPhone or your Android device is kind of like the new portal, right? Except for what's placed on there isn't decided by Yahoo, it's decided by Google, Apple, and then the consumer, and ultimately driven by what mobile developers do. That's not a great analogy, but it's kind of like it. So I mean, Yahoo and they have to do something to get in front of consumers, but I don't see how they make it like uber meaningful.
I think the other part to the question about who's the front runner is how do you define front runner? Yeah, like Flurry out there in 630,000 apps is a ridiculous number, right? I'm sure they're on billions of devices, but they kind of get dropped from a lot of the bigger apps, right? Once you grow to a certain size, you drop Flurry for other things. There are other SDKs. I think you could actually put mobile app tracking in that category.
Yeah.
There's it's on a really large percentage of the top grossing apps, the top apps, but a much smaller number compared to Flurry of total number of apps that it's actually installed in. And so when you think about frontrunner, it's like, do you define frontrunner as dollars flowing through the system, as number of devices? Like, what is that? What is that criteria? And I think you could go a lot of different ways to determine who's the frontrunner on different pieces.
Yeah. So maybe another way to frame the question would be like, who's the company that you would bet on to help you meet your goals as an app developer and as an app marketer, right? So like, inevitably, if you're launching on iOS and Android, well, you need Apple and Google.
Yep.
Right. You probably, if you're doing any performance marketing, you probably need mobile app tracking, right?
I like that plug.
And for customer support, e-com stuff, well, whatever.
If you care about your customers and talking to them and listening to them, you should probably be working with us.
Probably working at Apptentive. Right? And that's true, right? But then like everything else is kind of like, what's the right thing for your particular business? And that has to be made on an individual developer basis, but because it's going to be hard for, at least in my view, someone like Yahoo to say, here's the whole, this is everything you need, right? Because they don't own the platform, they don't own the hardware, and they don't own the distribution.
Right. But their play is a lot like Google's on the web, where it's, you know, if they can make $1 from 1 billion different apps or whatever, 1 billion different sessions each, fantastic. AdWords or AdSense does that all the time, right? And that's an interesting place and a profitable place for Google to play. So
yeah, and it seems like, so bringing this back to the app marketer, if you're an app marketer and you're thinking about this, a lot of what's been announced is probably not super relevant to you if you're at the higher end of the spectrum. If you're spending quite a bit of money on UA, if you're investing in retention marketing, if you're driving commerce through your business, you're probably less interested in the offerings that come from fundamentally companies driven around the long tail data aggregation and advertising, right? So the Facebook, Yahoo, Twitter initiatives, while they're coming to you and trying to pitch you, probably less interesting to you based upon your company's needs and where your business is going. Is that fair to say?
that's probably right.
Yeah.
Google,
Really
Apple,
nicely said.
right at the top, right? Like that's, you care about that most, and then you're getting very specific, but otherwise like not as important. You can keep listening to what they're doing, but probably not spend as much time.
Yeah, that's right. Because the other thing I would add here is that despite, no matter what like Apple or Google will say, like they care if you implement their services.
Yes.
They care if you take the most advantage of all the things that they have to offer when they're trying to decide editorial placement of your content.
Yeah,
That matters.
that's true.
I would say the one thing about the Yahoo announcement that I thought was particularly interesting, and I think it's new, was the announcement of Flurry Pulse, which is basically Flurry allowing the Flurry data for your app, right? If I have Flurry installed on my app, the data that Flurry collects for me to be distributed to any of their partners, which I think is actually a really great win for a lot of marketers and developers out there.
Yeah, that's true. Benchmarking, and we've seen this right from most recently App Annie has said that they're going to be publishing more of their insights around retention and some of that data, right?
Yep.
So it's like that direction.
Yep.
And that, like, if it's consumable, but you don't have to integrate their SDK. You don't have to necessarily have a direct relationship, but you can use that for all app marketers. That's a boom.
Yep.
Yeah, it reminds me of this, that whatever the saying is, if you're not paying for the product, you are the product.
Yeah.
So
Makes total sense. All right, so that's it for talking about Yahoo and some of the developer ecosystem developments of the past several months. And be sure to tune in for the other installations of App Marketing Conversations and like this on Facebook. Thanks.
or YouTube.
Or on YouTube.